A journey from Colorado to Reykjavik. I folded the white coat and placed it neatly into the suitcase. For a moment I smiled, thinking how proud my son Jason would be to see me standing beside my daughter-in-law Vanessa at their Iceland investor trip. I had even bought small gifts for the future partners, believing I finally belonged. The phone rang. His voice came through, flat and cold. "Mom, you're not coming. My wife doesn't want the guests asking about you." I froze. The phone slipped from my hand, hitting the floor with a sharp crack. My chest tightened. When did my love become baggage? When did I turn into someone to be explained away? My eyes shifted to the open suitcase, the coat shining like ice, mocking my hope. "My name is Diane Thompson, 64, a retired teacher living in Colorado. I once believed every sacrifice I made for my only son built a legacy we could share. Tonight I realize perhaps I was building a home where I was never meant to stay. But this story won't end here, because while they pose for photographs in Iceland, I was preparing legal papers that strip away filters and reveal the truth. Subscribe if you like this kind of story." That afternoon, the kitchen still carried the warm scent of half-baked apple pie. I had just rinsed the flour off my hands when my phone chimed. I sighed, bracing myself for another all-too-familiar message from Jason. "Mom, can you transfer $200? Or, we're short again this month. Can you cover the bill?" But when I unlocked the screen, I froze. It wasn't a request. It was a digital invitation. An image of a wooden cabin nestled against a glacier blue backdrop, Icelandic mountains dusted with snow rising behind it. Across the center of the card, bold letters read, "Mom, join us for our Iceland trip. We're launching Aspen Cabin Retreat, our treat." Jason and Vanessa. The dish rag slipped from my hand and hit the floor. I covered my mouth with trembling fingers as tears welled up. The words, "our treat," blurred before me. For the first time in decades, my son wasn't asking me for money. He was asking me to come, to be there. I sank into the kitchen chair, tears rolling freely. My eyes landed on the framed photo of Robert smiling from the counter. It was as if he were whispering, "Finally, Diane, you're being invited into the dream we once imagined." I rushed to the old oak cabinet, tugging open a drawer I hadn't touched in years. There it was, my expired passport, issued in 1993. The paper had yellowed, the navy cover frayed. It smelled faintly of age and dust, the last trace of the trip Robert and I took to Canada before hospitals became his only destination. Holding it in my hands, my chest tightened, but this time not with grief, with something close to joy. I whispered to myself, "Tomorrow. I'll get a new one tomorrow," and then, for the first time in 30 years, I spent money on myself. $450 for a silver Samsonite suitcase, sturdy enough for North Atlantic winds. $900 for a pure wool shearling coat, the most expensive piece of clothing I had ever owned. $120 for hand-knit gloves from the local shop, and 10 boxes of artisan chocolate, $25 each, carefully wrapped in foil and ribbon, gifts for the investors Jason had told me about. I laid everything neatly on my bed, the suitcase in the center, the gleaming coat draped on top, the chocolates lined up like bricks of hope. The room seemed brighter, not from the lamp above, but from something inside me that had been dimmed for decades. For the first time in over 30 years, I didn't feel like an outsider in my own family. I can still hear Jason's boyish voice, clear as the Colorado sky that winter afternoon. He must have been 10, his cheeks red from sledging, snow clinging to his mittens. He came running into the kitchen, breathless with excitement, and declared, "One day, Mom, I'll build you a house in the snow." "A cabin just for you," I laughed then, ruffling his messy brown hair. Back then, we had nothing. Robert had died in that construction accident, leaving me with a 12-year-old boy and a stack of medical bills that nearly drowned us. My salary as a school accountant barely stretched to cover rent and groceries. There were nights when I skipped dinner so Jason could eat a second helping of macaroni, but that promise, his promise, carried me through. So when, 30 years later, Jason and his wife Vanessa came to me with their grand idea, the Aspen Cabin Retreat, a luxury hideaway for travelers craving the silence of the Rockies, I remembered that little boy in snow-damp mittens. They needed capital. Banks had turned them down. Investors thought it was too risky. And so, I did what I had done all my life. I reached into my own pocket. I withdrew $120,000, every cent of my retirement savings. It was money I had accumulated over decades of working late nights at the school, managing not just numbers on a page, but pennies that could have gone toward vacations I never took, clothes I never bought, dreams I postponed again and again. When I signed that check, I told myself it wasn't just financing. It was faith. Faith in my son, faith in his promise from so long ago. I imagined the Aspen Cabin retreat as more than a business. It was the snow house Jason once dreamed of. Not only his legacy, but mine too. A place where future winter's children might laugh, where I could sit by the fire as an honored guest, not just the woman who paid the bills. That was my dream, my Deson, my legacy. I was sitting in the passport office, number B148, glowing on the board, when Jason's name lit up my phone. The room smelled faintly of wet wool coats and toner. A snowplow scraped past the window outside. "Hey, Mom," he said. "Hi, sweetheart." "I'm just waiting for my turn here." "Passport renewal?" I smiled into the receiver even though he couldn't see it. "Did you need something?" There was a pause. I heard paper rustling, voices echoing like he was in a store. "About Iceland?" My stomach tightened. "Yes?" He cleared his throat. "Vanessa's been talking with the PR people. They're saying the launch should really focus on us. You know, the couple. Just us." I tried to laugh lightly. "Jason, I'm not trying to stand on stage with you." I bought chocolate, 10 boxes, to hand out at the dinner. Little gifts. Thought it might help. "Right, Mom, I know," he said quickly. "It's just, it complicates the image." "Complicates? That's what I am now?" "Jason," I said softly, "I'm your mother." Not an image. In the background, Vanessa's voice cut in, sharp and clear. "Just tell her. This is supposed to be romantic branding. Parents ruin that." He sighed, stepped away from the noise. "Mom, Vanessa doesn't want you there." The words hit like cold water down my back. "Doesn't want me there?" "To Iceland?" "Yeah." He dropped his voice as if saying it quietly would make it kinder. "She thinks it's better if it's just us." I stared at the LED board blinking B142. "Jason, I pulled $120,000 from my retirement to help you build Aspen Cabin. Do I really need permission to sit in the room?" Silence, then awkwardly, "We know, Mom." "We do. You've been amazing." "None of this would have happened without you." "Without me, but not with me." The thought burned. I took a breath. "I even bought a white coat." I wanted to look nice in the photos. Vanessa's voice carried again, sharper now. "Jason, stop dragging it out. Just tell her." He swallowed. "Mom, you're not coming." The fluorescent light above me buzzed. The security guard coughed into his sleeve. Everything else was still. "I don't want you on this trip," he added, firmer this time, like he needed to make it stick. My trip, I thought. Not ours, not family, mine, his. "You don't want me?" My voice sounded small, even to me. "It's not personal," he rushed. "It's just the story we're selling. Investors, media, couples only. We'll do something later, just us. Okay?" Behind him, Vanessa again, unfiltered. "If she comes, it looks cheap. Amateur. We'll lose the angle." I closed my eyes. Images flickered, me counting groceries to stretch $68 across a week. I'm ironing my one blouse at 11 p.m., so it looks new. I signed the check at the credit union, handshaking, because that $120,000 was everything I'd saved for the rest of my life. And Jason, 10 years old, mittens, dripping with snow, promising me a cabin of my own. "When did I become something you have to hide?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer. "You're making this harder than it has to be," Vanessa said flatly. "It's business." Business. That's what my love turned into. The board flashed B147, one number left. "I hear you," I said finally. My voice surprised me, steady, calm, not begging. "And I hear something else too." "What's that?" Jason asked. "That somewhere along the line, you stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a problem." I paused. "I'll let you go." "You've got a brand to maintain, Mom." He started, but I pressed the red button and ended the call. For a moment, all I heard was the copier spitting pages, the child fussing 2 rows away. I slipped the phone into my purse and looked at my reflection in the window. The careful hair, the new coat, the tired eyes that suddenly looked awake. When did we drift so far? Was it Thanksgiving, when I sat at the pantry door while they staged a tablescape for Instagram? Was it my birthday, when the call turned into a midnight text, "Happy B-Day 3, just in time to count"? Was it the first time he introduced me as Diane instead of Mom, because the word sounded too small town for his new friends? Or was it simpler, the first time I said yes to something I should have said no to, and kept saying yes until my love looked like compliance? B148 blinked. My number. I stood, something shifting inside. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet click, like a lock opening. I thought of the folder in my closet. Cabin, docs, titles, signatures, my name. Love doesn't mean erasing yourself. Help isn't the same as surrender. As I stepped up to the counter for my new passport photo, I already knew where I'd be going when I left this building. Home, to those papers, to the truth that had been waiting all along. That afternoon, when I came home, I hung my coat behind the door. The kitchen still carried the warm scent of apple pie baked earlier, but now the sweetness caught in my throat, heavy, almost bitter. The house was so silent I could hear the clock ticking. Each click loud, insistent, as if time kept moving forward while my chest had stopped. I walked straight to the hallway, knelt before the low oak cabinet, and pulled at the bottom drawer. The wood screeched, dust lifting in a pale haze. I reached in and dragged out a cardboard box, the black marker label still bold, cabin, docks. I set it on the dining table. The faint circle from this morning's teacup still marked the surface. I breathed in deeply and lifted the lid. The smell of old paper, of ink, of faint mildew seeped out. Inside, neatly stacked files, transparent sleeves, rubber-banded folders. Everything was arranged the way I had always lived. Orderly, precise. Accountant's hands that never left a number uncounted. Once, I thought this carefulness was to protect my family. Now, it might be the only thing protecting me. I pulled out a green folder, its corners worn soft from being lifted and replaced so many times. My thumb pressed along the edges, the pages clinging. I wet my fingertip, eased them apart. The air in the room thickened, heavy enough to notice. At the top, bold black letters. Warranty deed, Pitkin County, Colorado. My eyes moved line by line, slow, deliberate, making sure I didn't miss a word. Then I stopped. The line seemed darker than the rest, though it wasn't. Grantees, Jason Winters and Vanessa Cole Winters, as joint tenants. I blinked once, hard, as though my name might appear if I looked again, but when I opened my eyes, the page stayed the same. Only 2 names. No Diane, no mother, no trace of me. My heart thudded so hard it filled my ears. I sat upright, forced a breath, pressed my palm flat to the page. The paper was cool, thin, and sharp-edged. Its corner nicked the pad of my finger, leaving a small bead of red. I didn't flinch. That sting, sharp and simple, was easier to hold than the ache pressing inside my chest. I turned the page, searching hopelessly for my name in a forgotten clause, some fine print that proved my place. Still nothing. Only a pale blue stamp from the county recorder, recorded May 14th, 2024, 10:17 a.m., all official. All sealed. A fact I could not bend. I pressed my whole hand across it as if I could push the words into changing. But nightmares fade when you wake. This page was not a dream. I reached for another stack. The bank statements, lines of numbers pitiless and exact. March 12th, 2024, outgoing wire transfer, $120,000. Memo, Aspen Cabin. That day, I had sat at the teller's desk, pen trembling as I signed the cashier's check. I remember how it felt, as if I had written my whole life onto that line. My future folded into theirs. Beneath it, an email Jason had sent. Mom, we'll add your name once we close. At the end, a red heart emoji. The printer had spat it out in grayscale, faded and hollow. I stared at it. That little heart, flimsy and pixelated, was the only proof of a promise that should have been carved in ink, in signatures, in my name. I shuffled through photos Vanessa had texted, renderings of cabins, sleek lines of glass and timber, her messages printed out, chirpy captions, "We're a team, Mom. This is our family future." Words that once glowed with warmth now rang empty, shells without sweetness, I tilted my head back, eyes drawn to a thin crack in the ceiling plaster, something I'd never noticed before. A question rose, uninvited, undeniable. Am I anything at all in this dream anymore? And with it, an image. Jason at 10, mittens soaked, cheeks red from snow, standing in our cramped kitchen, promising to build me a cabin someday. That memory collided with the reality on the table, a house that lived only in ink, carrying 2 names that were not mine. I leaned back in my chair, closed the folder, and smoothed its fraying edge. Beside it sat a box of chocolates I'd bought for the Iceland investors, the silver ribbon still perfectly tied. I laid my hand on it for a moment, my fingers trembling. No tears came. My eyes felt clear, focused. Something inside me hardened, quiet and certain. The truth was here, in black ink, in blue seals, in signatures that excluded me. And for the first time in days, maybe years, I wasn't lost in disappointment. I was awake. 2 days later, I found myself pushing open the heavy glass door of Caldwell and Marks, attorneys at law. The brass letters glinted in the weak Colorado sun. My heels clicked against the marble floor, echoing louder than I expected. Marcus was waiting in his office the same as it had been for decades. Mahogany desk, bookshelves lined with thick law volumes, and a photo of his grandchildren taped beside his computer monitor. He rose when he saw me, his gray hair catching the light. "Diane Winters," he said warmly, taking my hand in both of his. "It's been too long." I wish it were under better circumstances, I managed a small smile. "Me too?" He gestured for me to sit. "You said on the phone it was about Jason and some property documents?" I slid the green folder across his desk. My fingers lingered on it for a second before letting go. The Aspen cabin retreat. I gave them $120,000. I thought I was part of it. But my name, I tapped the deed, my voice tightening, isn't anywhere. Marcus adjusted his glasses and began leafing through the papers, slow and deliberate. He made small noises as he read, part sigh, part hum. After several minutes, he closed the folder and leaned back. "Diane," he said gently, "I need to be very clear. What you have here is not ownership. You transferred funds with the expectation of being added to the deed, but that never happened. Legally, the property belongs to Jason and Vanessa. Your name's not on the title?" I felt my stomach drop, even though I already knew. Still, hearing it in legal language turned pain into something colder. "But," Marcus raised a finger, "all is not lost. You see, what you do have is proof of contribution. This wire transfer, these emails promising to add your name later, that's evidence of an agreement, even if informal." My breath caught. "So what does that mean?" "Can I get my money back?" He nodded. "Potentially, yes. There are 2 avenues. First, we can claim unjust enrichment. They benefited from your funds, and equity demands reimbursement. Second, and perhaps stronger, we can reclassify this as a loan, not a gift. Your emails and the memo line, Aspen Cabin, help us argue intent. If a judge agrees, Jason and Vanessa owe you repayment." I pressed my hands together in my lap, knuckles whitening. But it wasn't a loan. I gave it because I believed. My voice trailed because I believed in my son, because I thought love was enough. Marcus leaned forward. His voice was calm but carried weight. "Diane, courts don't rule on feelings. They rule on paper, and on paper you didn't donate this to charity. You provided capital with conditions implied. Those conditions, respect, inclusion, recognition, were violated. That makes this enforceable." I looked at the folder again. For the first time, I didn't just see betrayal. I saw leverage. Marcus studied me for a long moment. "You've spent your life accommodating, Diane. I remember you as the accountant who kept everyone else honest. Now it's time to keep your own family honest. Do you want me to move forward?" The snow outside drifted past his office window, soft, relentless. I thought of Jason's words. "You're not coming. I don't want you on my trip." I lifted my chin. "Yes. Move forward." Marcus opened his drawer and pulled out a fresh legal pad. His pen hovered, ready. "Then let's start by drafting a demand letter. If they won't treat you as family, we'll make them treat you as a creditor. That, Diane, they can't ignore." Something inside me steadied, like a pendulum finding its center. For the first time in years, I felt less like a mother begging for a seat at the table and more like a woman reclaiming her place. The Icelandic air was sharp, almost metallic, the kind that stung your lungs but made every breath feel cleaner than the last. Jason stood with his arm wrapped around Vanessa at the edge of the glacier, their boots crunching in snow that sparkled like crushed glass. Vanessa tilted her head toward the light, making sure the angle caught the line of her jaw. "Hold it higher," she told Jason, adjusting the faux fur hood of her parka. Her phone shimmered in its clear case, already dotted with fingerprints from a morning of selfies. Jason raised his arm, the camera lens catching both of them against the endless white. They grinned, pressed their foreheads together, the wind tugging playfully at their coats. He snapped 3 shots in quick succession. Vanessa grabbed the phone, swiped through, and chose the second. "Perfect," she murmured, adding a filter that deepened the blues of the ice, softened the reds in their cheeks. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. "Dreams do come true." Jason watched her hit post, his chest swelling. The notification bell chimed almost immediately. Likes, comments, hearts stacking one atop another. He exhaled, shoulders loosening. Finally, he thought. Investors would see this. Friends back home would see it. His mother, well, she didn't need to. Vanessa slipped her arm through his, satisfied. "See?" she said, her voice warm but edged with triumph. No awkward explanations. No baggage in the background, just us. The founders. Jason kissed her temple, the cold biting his lips. He tried not to think about the crack in his mother's voice during that phone call. Tried not to remember the way she said she'd bought a white coat for the photos. Here, beneath the Icelandic sun, everything looked cleaner, sharper, easier. Vanessa leaned against him, scrolling through the flood of comments. "This is exactly the brand we needed," she whispered. "Couple goals." No distractions. Jason nodded, but his eyes lingered on the horizon for a moment too long, where the snow met the sky in an endless sheet of silence. Back in Colorado, Diane sat by her kitchen window, snow tapping lightly against the glass. Beyond the yard, the old swing Jason once played on swayed slightly in the wind, half buried in white. A pot of tea steamed beside her, the kettle whistling faintly in the background. She wasn't looking for Jason, she never searched his name, but the algorithm had its own ideas. Vanessa's post slid onto her feed, glowing against the dim light of her kitchen. Jason and Vanessa pressed close together on a glacier, cheeks pink from cold, eyes bright with triumph. The caption read, "Dreams do come true." Aspen retreat, couple goals. Founders. Diane's breath caught for a moment. Dreams. She thought of the dreams she had funded. $120,000 scraped from her retirement, signed away with a trembling hand. She thought of the text message that had cut like a knife. "You're not coming. I don't want you on my trip." Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then she set the phone down, poured tea into her cup. Steam curled upward, soft and steady. "Dreams," she whispered. "Yes. But whose dream?" She rose, crossed to the dining table. On it lay Marcus's folder, the neat stack of legal papers. She pressed her palm against the top page, the demand letter draft crisp under her hand. "They want to erase me from the picture? Then I'll step back in. Not with filters, but with facts. Not with hashtags, but with deeds." That night, while Jason and Vanessa posted cocktails under the northern lights, Diane wrote her own kind of post. Not for Instagram, but for the record. Her words were colder, sharper. Failure to repay $120,000, unjust enrichment, lien against Aspen cabin retreat. It wasn't vengeance and anger, it was justice and dignity. She took a slow sip of tea, eyes steady on the swing outside. "Let them have their brand. I will have the truth." And the truth, unlike filters, never fades. Reykjavik glittered outside the hotel windows, snow like spilt sugar along the harbor, yellow street lamps trembling in the wind. In the suite upstairs, faint piano scales drifted through the vents, the ballroom below rehearsing for the night. Vanessa stood before the mirror, smoothing a white satin dress over her hips. "Zip me," she said, lifting her hair with both hands. Jason tugged the zipper carefully, not wanting to catch the fabric. "This is it," he said, grinning at their reflection. "Investors at 7, press at 8. We're actually doing this." Her phone buzzed with another wave of notifications from their glacier post. Heart emojis, couple goals. A travel writer promising to DM Vanessa tilted her chin toward the mirror, lips curving. "See? Clean story, no background noise." Exactly what we wanted. Jason's phone vibrated on the dresser. He picked it up, expecting congratulations, but his smile faltered when he saw the subject line: demand for repayment, Winters free, Winters, pre-suit notice. Spam? Vanessa asked, catching his expression in the mirror. He swiped it open. A PDF loaded slowly, black letterhead sharp against the white screen. Caldwell and Marks, attorneys at law. His chest tightened, breath shallow. Jason? Vanessa turned, frown deepening. What is it? He didn't answer. His eyes caught on the bold paragraph halfway down the page. Failure to repay $120,000 within 30 days will result in immediate legal action, including but not limited to filing suit for unjust enrichment, seeking liens against Aspen Cabin Retreat assets, and recording a lease pendants on the Pitkin County property. Statutory interest and attorney's fees will be pursued. The words blurred for a second. Jason gripped the dresser to steady himself. Vanessa strode over and snatched the phone. Her eyes raced across the screen, her lips parting. You've got to be kidding me. She looked up sharp. Your mother is suing us? Now? Jason swallowed. His voice sounded thinner than he wanted. It's a demand letter. Pre-suit? It's not what? She snapped. She jabbed the screen with a manicured nail. 30 days, liens, list pendants. Do you even know what that does to title, to our launch? If one investor hears about this, we're done. We look like amateurs with family drama. A knock at the door, room service with champagne. Vanessa waved the waiter in without looking, eyes still glued to the letter. The tray clinked softly against the table. Leave it, she said curtly. When the door clicked shut, she scrolled to the bottom of the PDF. Marcus Caldwell. Of course, she tossed the phone back at Jason like it burned. Call him. Fix this, Jason dialed. The line rang into voicemail. He forced his voice steady. It's just leverage. She wants attention. We'll explain. We'll add her name after we close. Vanessa let out a short, bitter laugh. We told her she wasn't coming because it was better for the brand. Now she's the creditor and we're the story. She grabbed the champagne bottle, hands trembling, and poured too fast. Bubbles frothed up and spilt over, streaking down the green glass onto her dress. Perfect. She dabbed furiously at the dark stain spreading across the satin. Jason scanned the letter again, desperate for a loophole, and froze at another line. Our client's wire confirmation dated March 12th, 2024, evidences her $120,000 contribution. Your emails acknowledging the intent to add her name once we close establish the agreement. Please direct all communications to our office. Do not contact our client directly. His stomach knotted. They printed the emails, he whispered. My emails. Of course they did, Vanessa shot back. That's what lawyers do. They build a wall out of receipts. She set the dripping flute down too hard, champagne spilling onto the tablecloth, spreading like a starburst stain. We needed a clean narrative. No parents, no strings. And you? She broke off, swallowed hard. You promised me. Heat crept up Jason's neck. Panic rose, tight and choking. I'll fix it. How? Vanessa demanded. Her voice cracked against the high ceiling. With another glacier selfie? Call him again. He tried, straight to voicemail. Vanessa paced, heels sharp against the carpet. If they file a LA's pendants, we can't refinance. If there's an attachment, we can't touch the accounts. If investors do diligence tonight and this comes up, God, Jason, do you realize what's about to happen? The balcony door rattled with a gust. Beyond the glass, the harbor lights quivered against the black water. Jason lowered the phone slowly, as though it weighed 100 pounds. His voice was almost a whisper. She just wanted to be part of it. Vanessa stopped pacing, eyes narrowing. We chose the story, she said, quieter now, but harder. No parents. No clutter, no explanations, and we can't backtrack. Jason nodded, but the word chosen scraped inside him, raw. Across the ocean, I sat at my dining table in Colorado, a soft lamp glowing over my laptop. In my sent folder, the message to Caldwell and Marks was neatly filed. Outside, snow drifted steadily, delicately, over the garden swing my son Jason once used as a boy. I poured tea into my cup, watched the steam rise and curl into nothing. My hand was steady. My chest, for once, was light. I remembered Marcus's words. If they won't treat you as family, we'll make them treat you as a creditor. And instead of trembling, I felt relief. Let them learn what it feels like when the story is no longer theirs to control. In Reykjavik, the pianist began a waltz in the ballroom below. Vanessa pressed a towel against her champagne-stained dress. Jason stood at the window, the demand letter glowing on his phone, black words anchoring him in place. 2 worlds, one polished to shine, one written in ink. They were about to collide. The first snow of December lay heavy across Colorado when Jason and Vanessa pulled into my driveway. Their luxury SUV looked out of place against my modest brick home with its sagging gutters and quiet lawn. Jason knocked, softer than he ever had as a boy. When I opened the door, I stood framed in the warm lamplight, my wool sweater the same shade of gray as my hair. Behind me lingered the smell of apple pie, comforting, ordinary, unchanging. "Mom," Jason said, his voice cracked from a sleepless flight. "We need to talk." I let them in. Vanessa didn't meet my eyes, clutching her designer bag like a shield. We sat at the same kitchen table where Jason once spread his homework, where I once balanced the checkbook to the penny. Jason leaned forward. "We can't survive this without you. Investors are pulling questions. The letter, it scared them. Please, withdraw it. Say it was a mistake." I kept my gaze steady on him. "A mistake? Jason, the mistake was believing I would always say yes, no matter how you treated me." Vanessa finally looked up, her voice brittle. "It was never about disrespect. It was optics. Investors don't want parents around. It weakens the brand." I tilted my head, almost curious. "And what exactly does a brand mean, Vanessa, if it requires erasing the people who built the foundation?" Jason's face flushed. He gripped the table edge. "Mom, I'm sorry. We shouldn't have said those things. I shouldn't have uninvited you. I was wrong. But please, if you let this go, I'll make it right." Inside me, something long brittle felt whole again. Years of being overlooked, minimized, taken for granted, they no longer stung. They had shaped my clarity. I folded my hands, my voice even. "Jason, when you were 10, you promised me a cabin in the snow. Do you remember?" His eyes flickered. Yeah. You built it," I said gently. "But you built it on my savings, my sacrifices, my belief. And then you told me I didn't belong. You treated me like a problem to explain away." Jason lowered his head. I continued, the words carrying the weight of years. "Love without respect becomes exploitation. Help without gratitude becomes entitlement. You forgot the difference between having a mother and deserving one." The room fell silent, thick but not cruel. Vanessa's eyes glistened, though I couldn't tell if it was shame or fear. Jason whispered, "So what now?" I stood and moved to the window. Snowflakes drifted past, settling on the old swing where Jason once played as a boy. Without turning, I said, "Now, you face the consequences you tried to hand to me. The demand letter stands. You will pay back what you owe. And if one day you want to rebuild something with me, it won't be with money or cabins or optics. It will be with respect." Then I turned, my gaze steady, almost luminous. "Because, Jason, success built on dishonor collapses. But dignity endures." The words hung in the air, like iron and light all at once. Jason had no answer. Vanessa closed her bag, her face pale. As they left, I felt no triumph, only release. I had won, not by revenge, not by cruelty, but by refusing to be small. And for the first time in my 64 years, I understood the true legacy I wanted to leave. Not cabins, not money, but a reminder that no one has the right to erase the very hands that lifted them up. The phone call came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Diane sat curled in her armchair, the folder of legal documents now tucked away in a drawer, replaced on the table by a steaming pot of chamomile tea. "Diane?" The voice was warm, familiar, carrying the faint laugh lines of decades. "It's Ellen. Do you still remember your partner in crime from the teacher's lounge?" Diane laughed, the sound surprising her. "Ellen. Of course I remember. You used to smuggle cookies into the staff meetings." "Still do," Ellen chuckled. Then her tone softened. "I heard from Marcus. About Jason, about the cabin. Are you all right?" For a moment, Diane hesitated. Then the story came, like water long held back. She told Ellen about the $120,000, about the invitation to Iceland, about the text that cut like glass. You're not coming. She spoke of the deed without her name, of Marcus's letter, of Jason's pleading eyes across her own kitchen table. When she finished, silence hung for a beat. Then Ellen spoke, steady and sure. You did the right thing. You finally drew a line. You've given all your life, Diane. Maybe now it's time you give to yourself. The words settled in Diane's chest, warm and resonant. To myself, she repeated softly. Yes, Ellen said. You've always dreamed of seeing Europe. Remember how you used to keep brochures in your desk? Paris, Florence, Dublin? Go. Not for anyone else. For you. That evening, Diane opened her laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then began to type into the search bar. Flights to Europe. She didn't choose Iceland, the irony was too sharp. Instead, she clicked Florence, Italy. The photos filled her screen. Terracotta roofs glowing under Tuscan sun, narrow streets lined with gelato shops, the dome of the Duomo rising proud. Her heart lifted. She booked a ticket for spring. Before closing the laptop, she opened a blank page, curiosity stirring. Start a blog, the prompt said. She typed in the title box, Second Chances at 64. In the About Me section, she wrote, I once lived for others until I realized I had a life of my own waiting. This is where I'll write about the journeys I should have taken years ago. It's never too late to belong to yourself. When she pressed save, something inside her shifted again. Not brittle, not heavy, but light. She imagined Robert smiling, Ellen cheering, readers someday finding courage in her words. For the first time in decades, Diane felt not like someone left behind, but someone finally on her way. The phone call came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I sat curled in my armchair, the folder of legal documents now tucked away in a drawer, replaced on the table by a steaming pot of chamomile tea. Diane? The voice was warm, familiar, carrying the faint laugh lines of decades. It's Ellen. Do you still remember your partner in crime from the teacher's lounge? I laughed, the sound surprising me. Ellen. Of course I remember. You used to smuggle cookies into the staff meetings. Still do, Ellen chuckled, then her tone softened. I heard from Marcus. About Jason, about the cabin. Are you all right? For a moment I hesitated, then the story spilled out like water long held back. I told her about the $120,000, about the invitation to Iceland, about the words that cut like glass. You're not coming. I told her about the deed without my name. Marcus's letter, Jason's pleading eyes across my own kitchen table. When I finished, silence hung for a beat. Then Ellen spoke, steady and sure. You did the right thing. You finally drew a line. You've given all your life, Diane. Maybe now it's time you give to yourself. The words settled in my chest, warm and resonant. To myself, I repeated softly. Yes, Ellen said. You've always dreamed of seeing Europe. Remember how you used to keep brochures in your desk? Paris, Florence, Dublin? Go. Not for anyone else. For you. That evening I opened my laptop. My fingers hovered, then typed into the search bar, Flights to Europe. I didn't choose Iceland, the irony was too sharp. Instead I clicked Florence, Italy. Terracotta roofs glowed on the screen, narrow streets lined with gelato shops, the Duomo rising proud. My heart lifted. I booked a ticket for spring. Before closing the laptop, I opened a blank page. Start a blog, the prompt said. I typed Second Chances at 64. In the About Me section, I wrote, I once lived for others until I realized I had a life of my own waiting. This is where I'll write about the journeys I should have taken years ago. It's never too late to belong to yourself. When I pressed save, something inside me shifted. Not brittle, not heavy, but light. I imagined Robert smiling, Ellen cheering, strangers someday finding courage in my words. For the first time in decades, I felt not like someone left behind, but someone finally on her way. By the time Jason and Vanessa returned to Colorado, the snow cabin dream was already crumbling. Investors who once toasted them with champagne at Reykjavik galas had gone silent. 2 had sent curt emails, we cannot proceed until the litigation risk is resolved. Another withdrew altogether, citing instability in leadership. The Aspen Cabin retreat was no longer a story of romance and vision. It was now a cautionary tale whispered in conference rooms, Family money, lawsuits, drama. Vanessa paced their kitchen, her heels striking the hardwood with sharp, angry clicks. "This is your fault," she spat, her voice cutting. "You should have handled her. You should have kept her quiet." Jason sat at the island counter, shoulders slumped, a glass of untouched whiskey in front of him. "She's my mother, Vanessa." "Exactly," Vanessa snapped. "Your mother, not a partner, not a brand. And you let her sink everything. Do you even realize how much we've lost? Months of work, connections, credibility, gone." Jason looked at her, but the fire in her eyes wasn't anger alone. It was disappointment, maybe even contempt. Something between them had cracked wide open. For the first time in their marriage, Jason had no words. 2 days later, Vanessa packed her suitcase. She didn't slam the door. She didn't even cry. She just left, silence trailing behind her like smoke. That evening, Jason sat alone in the empty house. The walls echoed, stripped of Vanessa's framed prints, the counters bare. The space smelled faintly of the vanilla candles she'd taken with her, the absence louder than her presence ever was. He poured another glass of whiskey but didn't drink. Instead, he let his gaze fall on the darkened window. For a moment, the reflection staring back was not the 35-year-old entrepreneur in a wrinkled shirt. It was a boy, 12 years old, sitting at the kitchen table while his mother worked late, her glasses slipping down her nose as she balanced numbers so he could have a better chance. He saw her hands sliding him the last pork chop. He saw her ironing his only dress shirt at midnight for the school debate. He saw her smile, tired but steady, when she whispered, "One day, Jason, you'll build something of your own." And for the first time since Iceland, Jason let himself feel the truth. He had built something. But he had built it on the back of the one person he chose to erase. Now, in a house stripped of warmth, he finally understood what Diane meant. Having a mother and deserving one were never the same thing. The square in Florence glowed gold in the late afternoon sun. Terracotta rooftops shimmered. The Duomo's dome rose like a promise kept. I stood at the center of the piazza, suitcase at my side, the buzz of voices and the scent of espresso wrapping around me like music. I lifted my phone, not to take a photo for Jason, not to prove where I was. I opened my blog, Second Chances at 64. My first post had already gathered comments from strangers, women in Ohio, men in Vermont, a widow in Texas. They wrote of their own betrayals, of second chances, of long-delayed courage. I read each one slowly, my heart lifting with every word. Now I began typing a new entry. Once, my son told me, "You're not coming. I don't want you on my trip." Those words broke something in me, but they also freed me, because love without respect becomes exploitation. Help without gratitude becomes entitlement. And I finally understood, it is not enough to have a mother. You must deserve her. I paused, tears stinging, but this time they were not bitter. They were clean. At 64, I chose dignity over silence. I chose to be more than someone else's background. I learned that consequences are not cruelty. They are justice. And that justice belongs to everyone at any age, if only we claim it. My hands trembled as I pressed publish. A breeze lifted my hair, carrying laughter from a nearby cafe. For the first time in decades, I felt completely, beautifully my own. Not just Jason's mother, not just Robert's widow, but me, a woman, a traveler, a writer. I looked up at the sky, the same sky that stretched across oceans, back to the house where my son now sat alone, remembering the hands that once carried him. The universe, it seemed, had balanced itself. Actions had met consequences. I smiled. I whispered, almost like a prayer, but steadier, "Dignity endures." And with that, I stepped forward into the streets of Florence. My story no longer a secret, but a lantern for anyone still waiting for the courage to stand up, to take back their life, and to remember, it's never too late to belong to yourself. Thanks for listening. If this made you think, or if you've lived through something similar, share your thoughts in the comments. Our channel is a space for sharing tales of the elderly woman and family revenge stories from people who have weathered life's storms. Subscribe for more, because sometimes the deepest form of revenge is simply living on your own terms.